What's up, everybody? Kong Spideyzilla here, and yesterday you could tell a movie I seen, and that is Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Now, this is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. That's my opinion. Just throwing it right out there off the bat. I really enjoyed this movie. I would say that in my own personal opinion, this is my favorite MonsterVerse movie. Like it, I'm surprised it even to beat it out Godzilla versus Kong by a bit. But oh man, what a movie this was! What a movie! What a fun ride this movie was. Now, warning. This is gonna be my own personal opinion, and this is gonna be spoilers. This is gonna involve spoilers. So, I'm gonna put it with the title of the video. And if you still don't follow that for some whatever reason, I'm giving you your second warning. It's your last warning. Click off this video because it's gonna contain spoilers. Because I want to talk about how, in my opinion, how awesome this movie was. So this is your last warning. Click off this video to avoid spoilers. Okay, we're good. And as you can see, I got my high toys, Godzilla and Kong, and the Monsterverse movie, the DVD copies of King of the Monsters and Skull Island and 2014 as well. This movie was a blast. It was a fun time. I kind of have a lot to say. I have a lot to say, honestly. Okay, so the story, this takes place a couple of years after Godzilla versus Kong. They even, remember, there's going to be spoilers. One last chance. Spoiler alert. Okay, I'm starting now. They even show on monitors the fighting between Godzilla and Kong from the previous movie, and like they really are throwing it out there now that the Titans are coexisting with humans, and what's and how is the world gonna deal with it and that stuff, and it's almost like the humans adapted to coexisting with Titans, and they're accepted as kind of a normal thing now, and so Gia, following the human character from the last movie, my favorite human character out of these two Godzilla and Kong movies. So she's been having nightmares and visions about these weird triangular things that look kind of like pyramids, sort of, but they look more triangular like. And she keeps drawing them, and then they're kind of explaining emotional side to it, like she doesn't feel like she belongs there, like she feels like she belongs somewhere else, like her place in the surface world isn't there, and she feels like she belongs with Kong, and she doesn't feel like she belongs there, basically. And then I believe that's her name, Rebecca Hall's character. They basically just flat out say that, yeah, she is the adoptive mother of Gia. And so I think Rebecca Hall's character goes to Bernie, the conspiracy theorist guy from, well, the conspiracy guy from Godzilla versus Kong, and it's very interesting to see him back in here. And say what you want about Bernie, in my own unpopular opinion, he got laughs out of me. In my opinion, he did. That's my opinion, though. My unpopular opinion. And there is some supposed disturbance happening in the Hollow Earth, and Kong. They obviously show that Godzilla is ruling the surface world, and Kong is ruling the Hollow Earth. And they do say, like, as long as Kong stays down here, uh, we wouldn't have anything to worry about, because Godzilla and Kong, they have a the rivalry and that stuff. Even though they did kind of have somewhat a bit of a truce at the end of Godzilla versus Kong, and they showed some form of respect to each other. You know, Godzilla does. He still doesn't want Kong on the surface level. It's like they have their own territories, obviously. And then they show Kong down the Hollow Earth. He's just a normal day of his life. He's surviving. He's adventuring. He's exploring, and then he's taking on monsters every now and then. And then they come back to Godzilla. Like Godzilla is like going. He's doing Godzilla Final War style. He's going around the world, challenging and fighting these other titans that are kind of wreaking havoc somewhat. There's some type of disturbance going on in the Hollow Earth. Um, well, Godzilla does fight Scylla. I believe that's a spider titan's name, and oh, he just flat out murders. I think it's a herb. Oh my goodness, like he demolishes her. Uh, like literally. I'll get into that about the action points. Um, I'll get into more detail about the scenes when I get to the action. Talking about the action about this movie. I guess Godzilla is sensing something's up in the Hollow Earth, and there is this whole disturbance in the Hollow Earth, and like they're trying to find out. The human characters, I think, are trying to find out what it is and what's going on with Gia. And yeah, you can obviously say it's all connected. The thing is, Kong's tooth isn't doing so good. It's infected, and then they have this human character. We're introduced to another human character, a new human character. I'm sorry, but I'm not good with remembering human character names, so I forgot what this guy's name was. So maybe you can tell me in the comment section below what is his character's name is, but he is an Australian guy, and then he said he used to be at a vet, I believe, working at a vet, and he was, but now he's like working on he's now working with Titans and that stuff, and he's a pretty cool character. I kind of liked his human character in the movie. He's kind of funny like Bernie, but like in a different way. And the two of them just had funny interactions. And there is a couple of side human characters, but I don't remember the names. There is this soldier guy that goes with him, but well, if you watch the movie, you know what happens to him. He did seem kind of ignorant and kind of like a jerk, I guess you would say. Maybe too iffy. But if you watch the movie, you guys knew what happened to him. And all that jump scare got me so bad. That got me right there, that jump scare. And so they took Gia with them. They're exploring the Hollow Earth, and in these areas that haven't been discovered in the Hollow Earth before, not yet. And Kong is also going down these paths as well, but they're different. They're in totally different areas. They're not following Kong or anything. Well, they kind of are, but I feel like maybe both them and Kong get separated, and they kind of end up going their own paths. So Kong, what happens? And there's also some type of distress call going on, and basically they're showing that Kong is lonely and that stuff, and he wishes he could just find, like a member like him again. Like he's the only one left. And then this scene happens where he meets the little Kong, and oh my goodness, like I was not expecting it the way how it was. It was they were showing it in the trailer. The little Kong, it looks like he's lost and that stuff, and then Kong is like trying to comfort him, whatever, and like trying to like say like I'm good, you can trust me. Like what's going on here? What's happening? And then the little Kong is a little poo at first because he bites his hand. He bits his finger. And these other apes, like these other big apes, ambush Kong, and basically that was the bait. And the little Kong is fighting too. I believe he has a name, but I just call him Little Kong. Little Kong is fighting too, and then I want to get into the detail about the action scenes in a different section, but oh, that was a fun scene. And they do show when Kong fights is that unlike Godzilla, he shows no mercy. Kong, he gives his opponents a second chance. So obviously showing one of the differences in behavior between Goji and Kong. And I think Kong, he spares the little Kong, and then he actually kind of helps him out, and I think the little Kong kind of follows him around. I think the little Kong is trying to lead him somewhere and like trick him in a way. And then at first he's like trying to trick him, and then this water titan comes up. Like that was a like a pretty scary scene because how scary that water kaiju looked. So like in a way, little Kong was trying to get him killed. It's like what the heck? And then obviously Kong survives that scenario, and then every now and then we're cutting back to Godzilla, and Godzilla's like going around absorbing some like radiation, getting energy, and then I think he fights Tiamat. Now I believe Tiamat was a kaiju, a titan already mentioned. It actually shown in the MonsterVerse, like in the comics. So, and they do show a fight scene between I think it's a her and then Godzilla, and just well, you know what happens. I'll go into detail about that when I get to the action scenes. Uh, so in their journey, the humans' journey in the Hollow Earth, in the meantime, they're discovering like this ancient temple that obviously looks very similar to the Iwi native tribe's wall in Kong School Island. And so, and there's this little bug that kind of guides Gia. It's like a little fire bug thing, and then like a firefly, but it looks like a dragonfly. And then there's the Mothra symbol. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so cool. And then it's almost like the bug kind of guides Gia, and nobody else is catching on. Like she's the one that knows, obviously. And she presses this thing. It's like a stone that kind of acts like a button. I forgot what those are called, but it's like they are shown in fiction plenty of the time. And then it opens up like the little wall, like the little gate, but it's like it's not really a gate. It's kind of like it's like all stone and rock. So and then they go into the Hollow Earth, and then well deeper into this temple thing, and then they're finding these crystals, these big crystals, and kind of like the ones you see in that picture right there, exactly like it. And they also discover this weird silk thing. I think it's silk. I'm not sure. I'll apologize if I get it wrong, but it's like material that's kind of similar to Mothra's webbing. And funny thing that they connect that later on, and they 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 end up coming across natives still around, still alive and well. They're ambushing them, and then they see Gia, and then they realize like, hey, this one looks like one of us, like, and they sense something's up. So like they spare our human characters, and then they take them to the temple, and then next thing you know, there it is, the multiple little tiny triangular pyramid things. I don't know what to call them, but that's what they look like to me. Obviously, Gia's vision was right. Gia's visions and nightmares, and she also had nightmares about this. Um, like we see the Kong face, and we see the Shimo face, and then that's what they also showed in her nightmares and visions. So a thing they have here is that there's like this huge. I guess the best I could describe it is like a huge pyramid crystal thing, and then they show. And I don't know if she's like the queen or the princess of the tribe, and I think she comes out, and she obviously is like the leader, and then she comes out, and then her and Gia, I think they hold hands, and then I think they spiritually sent that Gia is family. She was a part of their tribe and that stuff. And the natives, I think they give them a tour of their home, their place, and then eventually we stumble across this ancient writing in scripture, these cave part carvings, and then they show like the Godzilla and then Kong in the pictures, and they show this guy, the name is Scar King, and then there's Shimo, this ice creature named Shimo, and interesting part about the story that in this fictional universe, she is the one that caused the Ice Age. Apparently, that's a pretty interesting touch there. And did they mention anywhere in the movie that Shimo was the first Titan? I don't know if they mentioned that she was the first Titan slash kaiju in this universe. I don't know. Well, when the movie comes out on DVD and Blu-ray, I'll have to watch it again. But I kept hearing from fans that like, oh, she's the first kaiju in Titan. Like, I probably need to watch the movie again, like in the near future. But I that's what I heard. But when watching the movie, I don't know if I heard that. But she was the one that caused the Ice Age, so that's an interesting, cool story part. And then we cut back to Kong, and the little Kong is leading him to the Kong, like the secret lair of like Kong's kind. And like it's a whole like family, it's basically like a whole like tribe, a whole family of Kongs, basically. And at first, like thought they were pretty hostile, but but now looking at it, they're it's like they're being forced to work. They're kind of slaves to like to this leader guy, and who is Skarking. And it is Skarking that is ruling over everybody, and then it's like he basically made everybody his slaves in a way. So, and they do describe in the backstory that he is power hungry, and then he became obsessed with the power. And they did describe like, oh, there was this ancient war between the Kongs and Godzilla and that stuff, and then the Titan that ate a star. So like, was that the same Godzilla that's like a good guy slash anti-hero, or was that like a different species of like a different Godzilla that ate a star? Because I kept hearing that like, oh, the kaiju that swallowed a star, a Godzilla became evil that swallowed a star, and then like I thought it was in the they described that it was a in the original plot for Godzilla versus Kong, the first one, that they described that was an evil Godzilla that became bad. And then I think Godzilla, they even say that Godzilla imprisoned them underground, and then Scar King became power hungry, and then he became obsessed with trying to get to the surface world. And like some really interesting backstory stuff here. And then we get to basically what was described in the plot leaks and backstory leaks. But back getting back to the monster action, apparently Godzilla back in Antarctica, they show that he's like evolving and that stuff. He's resting, but he is evolving. And then uh Kong, it's like he finally is reunited with family again in his own kind. But like something is not right here. And basically Kong's presence is known throughout I guess the lair of Kong's, and then that's when Scar King is warned by like his ape henchmen or minions, whatever, and that's when Scar King comes out. And oh boy, I'll get to him when I get to talk about the monsters and the action and that stuff. My favorite parts of the movie, basically. So he jumps up, he shows up, he takes notice of Kong, and he actually um laughs at Kong. He makes fun of him for his tooth, and he gets plenty of the apes to actually laugh at him, and just like Scar King is like circling around Kong, like obviously like viewing him like an enemy. And I don't know if this ape was the Little Kong's brother, but they look pretty different. And funny enough, Little Kong looks very similar to bizarrely a little similar to Scar King in some ways, but obviously Scar King's kind of creepy looking, and then Little Kong's adorable looking. So I guess this ape was a friend of the Little Kong, or maybe even his brother, I'm not sure. And then something goes wrong, and then Scar King actually pushes him into the lava. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, that was like sad and depressing right there. And then that's what triggers Kong to fight and attack Scar King, and the battle begins. And Kong is struggling against Scar King. He is struggling. He's having trouble against him. Scar King is giving him a tough time and a run for his money. But then Kong redeems himself. He pulls through, and then he throws Scar King and slams him a couple times. And that's how Scar King ends up playing dirty. He summons Shimo with this crystal ice thing that's at the end of his whip, and then he takes it out, and it's like like a thing like that can kind of control Shimo, and then it causes her to come out, and she's looking all intimidating and threatening, and she's in chains apparently, and she comes out, and I thought she was going to be an evil titan like Scar King was, but no, it's revealed that she is being used by Scar King. She's not an evil titan. She's not a bad guy. Um, Scar King is like the legitimately the main villain in this movie. Shimo comes out. Scar King controls her and forces her to fight Kong. And poor Kong, he gets his arm, like his right arm, like brutally damaged by Shimo's ice beam. It is basically a freeze burn to the next level. And the poor guy's arm is shaking, and then you realize that that arm is like badly, horribly injured, and Kong has no choice but to retreat, and he does. And Scar King and his ape henchmen is like what I like to call them, his little ape army, and they start chasing Kong. Scar King unleashes Shimo, and then he breaks the chains, and then he unleashes her, and he controls her, and they're searching, and they come out of their own Hollow Earth hideout, and they go searching for Kong, and then some of his ape henchmen is tracking down and chasing Kong, and then it's like these traps are like planned for them. And that's a pretty fun, entertaining scene. And then Little Kong helps him out, and they finally meet up with the human characters, and they realize that Kong is hurt very badly, and his arm is badly injured from that frostbite. I believe it's a frostbite. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but and it's like in a way, Kong is losing his arm, and this is where the armored war glove comes in, the brawl glove, like basically what people also like to call the Thanos glove. And they even mentioned Mechagodzilla. I remember they mentioned Mechagodzilla in that scene, and the technology they have now, and then they give Kong the upgrade. It's the metal arm, um, like it's cybernetic. Like he still has his physical arm in there, but it's like the metal war glove in a way heals his arm, and it makes it the like his right punching arm like a lot stronger and a lot more powerful. Basically, Kong gets an upgrade. He gets an upgrade. He gets a power up as described in the story leaks. It wasn't spoiled exactly, but still. And then that's when Godzilla senses something is up, and then that's when he bursts out and he has his new pink form, I guess. And like, oh, that's such a cool scene. And then he bursts out like all enraged and then angry, and then like, obviously Godzilla senses something is up, and then like it awakens him, and then I think Godzilla's roaming around the surface level again in this new evolved state, and um Kong, they say that Kong, can't stop this on his own, just like in the trailers, and he won't be alone. And then they have to get Godzilla to help, and then like Bernie is saying like, but last time they met, it was almost the end of Kong, and like it's like basically Kong has to convince Godzilla somehow. It's like how is he gonna convince? And then that's when you know who comes in, and the tribe involving Mothra and Kong apparently, and Godzilla. Apparently, it's all connected in some way. Um, Basically, the native ancient people they looked up to the Titans as like guardians, like the kaiju's in this universe as like the guardians of Earth, the ones a part of Earth. So it makes sense that in some way the tribe connected to Kong is like somehow connected to the tribe of Mothra. So, and they show that Kong is going through a hollow Earth portal, and then that's when I think Geo walks up the. I don't know how to describe it all that much, but it's like the giant structure, and then there's this bright spiritual light, and then it's like this little power aura. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like this little power dust that comes from her hand, and then next thing you know, there's this big glowing golden light, and then Mothra shows up and like she's here. It's like yeah, and they even bring her up in the scripture and that stuff. The backstory for the Scar King and that stuff, and the war between Godzilla and Scar King back then and Shimo, and then Mothra reawakens. She is finally reincarnated, and she flies out of the Hollow Earth. She makes her way out of the Hollow Earth to go help convince Godzilla, and then Kong arrives in Egypt from the Hollow Earth, and then he emits like a very loud roar, and then I think Godzilla senses it, like oh, I told this son of a gun to not leave his territory, and here he is on my territory, and then he he leaps off the mountain and into the water. He heads towards Kong's way, and then finally he shows up in Egypt, just destroying everything in his path, sort of. Godzilla meets up with Kong again, and then you can see on Kong's face he's trying to convince Godzilla, like, I don't want to fight you, I need your help. But then Godzilla's just like he doesn't understand him all that much. He just charged right into battle with Kong, and we get like the cool epic rematch between these two in the Monsterverse. This is like the round three in movie history. First one it was 1962, second one was GVK, and then now this. So this is like round three in a way. Basically another rematch. Technically this will be like their second time rematching in the Monsterverse. Well, technically third time if you're counting the two separate battles in GVK, but so like they're fighting pretty dirty, and then like Kong has no choice but to defend himself and fight back. He does a pretty good job, but they do show that Godzilla is more powerful than Kong, and then they show Godzilla getting the upper hand on him, and Godzilla's going to defeat Kong, and he's actually going to blast him right in the face with his newly evolved atomic breath. And that's when Mothra shows up, and her aura of light and power like is so powerful that it even pushes Godzilla on the ground. And then that's all what it takes for Godzilla to calm down. It's like they're reigniting when it's like, oh. And then there's even Gia there. She shows up alongside Mothra, and finally Godzilla's convinced. There's a big threat in the Hollow Earth, and then you know that's that's that. Godzilla's convinced, and then we have the ultimate kaiju trio team up, and then we have an epic roar shot, and then Godzilla, you know, Kong and Mothra, they go down the Hollow Earth in like the most epic style ever. They arrive like a dang meteor crashing onto the ground from the Hollow Earth, and then Kong's Scar King and like his henchmen are like looking at looking at what that is, and then we get the cool famous shot right here, as you can see on the picture. Godzilla and Kong burst out of the ground, and then we get the cool epic Batman and what Big Jack Films. Shout out to him. Um, the cool Batman and Robin running shot. And they're running towards him. Scar King riding on Shimo charges towards them, and then Kong's like, "I'll do the same." And he gets on top of Godzilla's back, and then he's riding Godzilla, and then they charge into battle, and like, oh my goodness, like I would say this even beats like, oh, like I think it rivals the epic charge scene from Godzilla King of the Monsters. Like it's that good, but I have to get in detail about that, the action scenes. And this epic battle happens in the Hollow Earth. They're fighting each other. Little Kong's fighting too. He's throwing stones at I think that happened earlier, but I believe he is throwing stones at the I guess the bad Kongs, the bad giant titan apes, and then there's this kind of like evil one that's like Scar King's like right hand man, but he's kind of pushed around a lot. He's trying to get to Little Kong, and then but then I think these giant crystal structures that kind of look like pyramids in a way. I'm not sure that's the best I can describe them. And it's like the gravity, like it messes with the gravity in that area. Like Kong and Godzilla and the rest of the other Titans, they can roam in there just finely, but then that just messes with the whole gravity. So it's like they're fighting while floating around. It's just so great. And then uh Mothra's helping out too. She's fighting some of the bad apes, and then she even helps Godzilla a little bit with Shimo. And then something happens, and they all get sucked into the Hollow Earth portals that lead to the real world. And I think they end up fighting. I forgive me, but I forgot what it is called. But doesn't it take place in Brazil? I think it does, but I'm sorry if I'm getting stuff mixed up right now. I forgot what the place was called, but they end up in the city, and then the way how they show up because of Shimo, her ice powers are like very powerful. When she just like when she roams around, it's like similar with King Ghidorah and King of the Monsters. He brings a thunderstorm wherever he goes, like a hurricane. It's like comparable to that, but it's like not as like out of control. Like wherever Shimo goes, she brings ice with her. So any ground she steps on, she freezes it just like that. So and because Shimo's there, the tidal wave gets frozen. The whole water and ocean in the area from the beach just gets frozen, and then Scar King and Shimo burst out. And you can see Scar King smile very evilly because, this is what he wanted. He wanted to get to the surface level. He was obsessed with it. But then Godzilla and Kong, they show back up, and then they surprise attack them, and then they're basically it's kind of like round two, Godzilla and Kong fighting Shimo and Scar King, and and they're crashing in the buildings. It's fun action stuff, and the little Kong, he finds the axe because Kong was trying to stop himself from going to the portal with the axe. He got his axe back, by the way. This cool thing happened with the axe throughout the movie. Like, he brought it with him, and then he lost in the battle against Scar King. And then Scar King took his axe. And then in this fight, Kong gets his axe back when he beats up Scar King in this, like, second fight. And he's trying to hold himself, like, from going to the portal, but then his axe gets stuck in the wall, and then he leaves it. It's like an oh no moment, and then but later Little Kong comes to join the final climax battle, and then he brings the axe that Kong had, and then he frees it, he grabs it, and then he jumps through the portal, and in the meantime they kind of switch between tag team fights, like Shimo switches from fighting the Kong, and then Godzilla switches to fighting Scar King, and then it goes back to the normal regular fighting with Scar King fighting Kong, and then Godzilla fighting Shimo. So it's just like it just reminds me of like the old older Showa movies, like when Godzilla and Anguirus fought Gigan and King Ghidorah, or Godzilla and Jaguar fought Megalon and Gigan. It's like that. So, whew, Oh yeah, and our human characters, they're trying to survive, and I think Mothra helps them out, which is pretty cool. So Godzilla, Kong, and Shimo and Star King, they're continuing their final battle, and then in the city, and then like Scar King's like is trying to control Shimo at the moment, and then he gets it knocked out of his hand. It's like Scar King is trying to get that back, but then he keeps getting interrupted and keeps getting hit, and then Godzilla butts in, and then he fights Scar King. He has a standoff with him, and Kong is like kind of having a standoff with Shimo, and then uh so Scar King is trying to get the thing, and then he grabs it. I think Godzilla stops him from using it, and it drops on the ground. And then Shimo turns her attention to Godzilla, and she fights him. And then, at least I think it happens. But um, and then Kong is trying to. He notices about the little ice crystal thing that Scar King is using, and then he's trying to get to it, but then Scar King is like stopping him, and I think he's trying to destroy it, but then Scar King's preventing him, and then that's when little Kong with the axe comes in and just destroys the object, completely destroying Scar King's control over Shimo. Shimo turns good now, and then Godzilla and Kong do this epic tag team thing, and then next thing you know, Kong has Scar King in his grasp, holding him with the metal glove arm, and then he's choking Scar King out, and then Shimo snaps out of it. She turns good. She reverts back to her good self, and then it's like her and Godzilla like share like a little kaiji dialogue along with Kong, and then she freezes Scar King, and just and then Kong does this epic fatality, and he shatters Scar King like fatality. Like I'll get more into detail about that, but yeah, awesome. Like a good final battle. I wish it could have been longer though, much longer, but still. And because Shimo blasted her ice breath into the air in a way, it kind of causes like a frozen like it's causing like a frozen atmosphere, and then Godzilla with his atomic breath at the end when Shimo turns good, and she's not bad anymore. Godzilla shoots his evolved atomic breath to the sky to basically like to stop the freezing threat, I guess. So yeah, there you go. The human characters, they're safe, and then there is a storyline where Rebecca Hall's character, she thought she had to give Gia up, but like luckily she doesn't. Like that was a cool emotional moment between the human characters, and the movie ends right there. Godzilla goes back to sleeping in Rome. Apparently, that's like his new sleeping spot now. Godzilla, I think Mothra goes to chill in her own little location. She webs up the wall again because Scar King destroyed it by using Shimo before the climax happened, and then so yeah, Godzilla and Mothra, I think they go into resting, and then Scar King is defeated. He's killed. He's destroyed. Uh, Kong, I believe, takes over as the new king and ruler of that ape habitat, and then Shimo's free now, and then now Shimo lives alongside them now, and then they all roar, and then that's the end. Whew! Like I said before, what a movie. All right, now let me get into the highlights of the movie. Okay, well, the negatives. I'm gonna warn you. I only just have a couple negative little pet peeves about this movie. I wish some fights could have been done longer and paced a bit slower, especially the final battle. I wish Mothra would have gotten a bit more time to shine, some more time to shine. Other than that, though, just this movie's awesome in my opinion. This one of my favorite movies. This became one of my favorite movies of all time. These are my first impressions, though. Opinions can change and vary, but I feel like my opinions are not going to change on this movie. Like, I finally get that Godzilla and King Kong theater experience I wanted. I couldn't get it with Godzilla versus Kong, unfortunately, because that was when the COVID was very like much a threat, and my family likes to play it safe. They allowed you to go see in the theaters, but my family likes to play it safe, so I was forced to watching it alone by myself on HBO Max. Well, back then when Max was called HBO Max. It was still a great experience, but I think a better experience when the second day came and my family sat down and watched it. I think that was a better experience, but right, anyway, but I finally get that Godzilla and King Kong theater experience I wanted, and man, did it feel so good. And I've never seen. There could be other movies, but I've never seen a Godzilla or King Kong movie where the monsters have this much time to shine in a movie. Really, like I don't know. And I know Godzilla fans are complaining Godzilla didn't have that much screen time again, and Kong took all the spotlight. But I'm fine with that thinking about it because you know why? Um Now this is Kong's 10th movie. Meanwhile, this is like Godzilla's like 35th live action film. And then meanwhile, this is King Kong's 10th live action movie. So, in fiction, Godzilla has always had more time to shine than King Kong if you think about it, through cinema and movie history. So, I actually don't mind that. And in my opinion, it's gonna sound a bit crazy, but I feel like Godzilla, he did more in this movie than in Godzilla versus Kong. Like here's what I'm saying. Godzilla versus Kong, he destroys the Apex base, he shows up and that stuff, and like we see him in the ocean, he tracks down Mechagodzilla, he senses where he is, and then he fights a bit of the fight scene involving the aircraft carrier, and then he goes to Hong Kong and destroys a bridge, and then he is tracking down Mechagodzilla, but then he blows the massive hole into the hollow earth. And his final battle with Kong in Hong Kong, and then he fights Mechagodzilla, and that's when Kong saves him. Here, he fights Tiamat. He he fights Scylla at the beginning. They show a scene where he's absorbing radiation, and then they show him in his evolved state, and and then they show they show another scene of him. It's just and then they show him in Egypt, and then they show him like he leaps off of a mountain. His rematch with Kong and the epic final battle. I feel like he does somewhat more in this than in Godzilla versus Kong, in my opinion. I do really feel like that, in my opinion. Speaking of getting more time to shine, that happens with Kong, obviously. Like, I don't no, I I feel like this is like the one King Kong and Godzilla movie where we get them they get time I've never seen a Godzilla or King Kong movie to the point where the monsters are like full on main characters. Like, now you could get close with like a couple other Godzilla movies, some Godzilla movies, and King Kong especially. But I've never. The most closest you got to with Peter Jackson's King Kong, but here it's like the most, in my opinion. And that just makes things cooler and more epic. And it's like this MonsterVerse film kind of has the least amount of humans. Like, it's very crazy how we first started off basically 10 years ago with Godzilla 2014, and remember how there was people saying there was too much humans and not enough Godzilla, but now it's like this is like fans finally getting what they wanted after all these years. Gia's still my favorite human character, right now as we speak, in the recent MonsterVerse movies. Obviously, this one, but I didn't mind the human characters that much in this movie. I didn't. In fact, they were actually kind of fun to watch. I do like the interesting backstories they had, and they just they had some cool moments in the story, and there was great emotional scenes such as Kong, and Gia, they're doing the finger touch thing again, and how got Kong and Little Kong were building a connection, and then when Mothra shows up, that was pretty goodly emotional, and then when Godzilla And when Godzilla and Mothra reignite, that's very touching and kind of emotional for me, you know. So it's like Godzilla and Kong, they were kick ass in this movie. They were badass. They were savage. They were brutal, and just like, and they do show that, they also had a heart. They had a soul and that stuff. And just like for me, like this is peak Godzilla and King Kong right here, in my opinion. When it comes to me like liking their characters, and then Godzilla, typical anti-hero Godzilla, exactly the way I like him. He's just he's a savage in the movie, and so is Kong. And I like the way how whenever like, they kill off the monsters in the movie, like with fatality move, and this even has more creature violence and brutality in it than Godzilla versus Kong. Like I was go as far as to say, in my opinion, like this is a bit more brutaler than Peter Jackson's King Kong, in my opinion. And in my opinion, I think it had more of that big budget epicness that Godzilla King of the Monsters have, and that, in my opinion, Godzilla vs. Kong was missing a little bit. But I don't mind Godzilla vs. Kong; that was still epic as heck. But like this just had the good quality, and the CGI was, in my opinion, was good. Now maybe the CGI isn't perfect in every shot, but I like the CGI in this movie. I like the special effects; they were pretty well done. I like all the details. We get to see more of the Hollow Earth. It's more explained. I think things are better explained in this than in Godzilla vs. Kong. Not sure, but I have to see the movie again. But well, the New Empire. But I do, I do feel like they explain things better in here. And then I feel like we get like all the awesome action scenes. I think the soundtrack, I don't know, it might be debatable, but I think the soundtrack might be, I don't know, a bit better than Godzilla vs. Kong. Not sure, but I feel like it might be a bit better. I do hear Godzilla's theme full on now. Like, I really do. Like, more than so than Godzilla versus Kong. Like, not Godzilla King of the Monsters level, but it's, I hear it and it's pretty close. And then you go Godzilla King of the Monsters style and bring back the classic Godzilla roars. It's like, oh, that was so cool. And the cool thing is that with Godzilla in the movie, like it's always been said like, oh, Monster vs. Godzilla has a nuclear pulse, but it's like we saw that in the comic books, kind of, but like we never see in the movies. Well, now here it is. He has the nuclear pulse. And like there's such like cool Godzilla shots in this movie and Kong shots as well. And then Godzilla's new evolved state is pretty cool. He kind of reminds me of Millennium Godzilla with the spikes. And it's almost like with Godzilla's new appearance, it's like they take some cues from other Godzilla designs and appearances, like the pink atomic breath and the pink looking power aura. It gives me Shin Godzilla vibes. And the spikes look like, for me, like look straight from like either Korea Saga Goji or 2000 Goji, and the way how Godzilla looks, as you can see, right there, he kind of looks like he looks bulky. He does look kind of stocky, but he also kind of has a thin shape to him, and it reminds me of Godzilla Final Wars' design in a way. So that's pretty cool. And it's almost like Godzilla kind of goes back in a way to like his 2014 type shape a little bit. So it's like they took cues from like different Godzilla appearances and designs. And it's like also kind of like how Godzilla looks in the MonsterVerse today, like that. Well, before he got his new appearance. So it's like they mixed and mashed like a little bit of um different Godzilla designs, but and appearances, but it's mostly MonsterVerse Godzilla. So that's pretty cool. And the pink atomic breath, the pink power, that grew on me. At first, I was like, I don't know how to feel about that. And then it grew on me, though. And just like, I like the visuals in this movie. The cinematography was great. And just the action was through the roof. This movie was just a fun ride. It was a fun roller coaster ride. That's one of the things I could best describe this movie. It was a fun, great ride, and I had a great time at the theater watching this movie. I fanboyed out. I felt like a kid again. very much like how I felt with Godzilla King of the Monsters and a couple other movies I watched in the theater, but like the best to compare it was with Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I got that vibe again. I like some of the music they play in this series. Well, this movie, my bad. I like some of the music they play in this movie, and also, it's almost like Godzilla and Kong. They have more character now. It's just like it's really cool, and I really like that. Man, I just like how crazy this movie gets. And when it comes to series and fiction or movies and fiction, I like when things get really crazy. In my opinion, it's just like I don't know. I just find it fun. It's entertaining, and this is definitely reminiscent of Showa era Godzilla movies or Godzilla Final Wars, and but I do like that. It helps give this movie its own identity in the MonsterVerse. As a different film. This movie just it's one fun adventure with this film. It's one of those movies you have to turn your brain off and watch it, kind of like a Godzilla Final Wars movie or some of the Showa era Godzilla movies. And it's exactly like Godzilla Final Wars. It's like a modern era Showa film, but it's like the new technology we have now. And it's like, ooh. And I like the expressions that the monsters can make. Is like they're very expressive, they're very emotive, they have such character. And Mothra, she was awesome. She was amazing in the movie. Like the scenes were very beautiful and that stuff. The Scar King, he was a great evil villain, honestly. I gotta say. I think he was well done. I like Scar King. He was a very interesting, unique villain. And Shima was a cool kaiju. I liked her too. They're both interesting, unique kaiju characters. I do wish the fight scenes were a bit longer and slower paced, sure, but the fight scenes still kick ass. Like literally, like I like how we open up with an action sequences. We get right into the action, and then we cut to Godzilla, like battling, Scylla in the city, just like in Rome, I believe. I'm not sure what it was, but like, and then the action scenes and the monster scenes are obviously the best part of the movie. Just like I like the brutal and savageness between the monsters in this movie, and then Little Kong, like he was great in the movie. I liked him. He was adorable, and like to see Godzilla and King Kong together again, but on the big screen, that's a special experience for me in the world of fiction. Like that's so cool. That holds a special place for me in the world of fiction, and it's just so yeah. More about the action scenes. There's more to talk about. Godzilla in this movie, man, just like shoulder bashing Scylla, and then jumping on her, and then just blowing Kaiju up with his atomic breath. And then he left Tiamat in pieces. Like dang. And then the nuclear pulse, and then just and then his fight scene with Kong in Egypt, his rematch. I didn't expect him to slam Kong into a pyramid and then do a legitimate WWE move on him. Like, bruh, I did not expect that. It's like maybe not as historic as like something like the Kiss of Death in 2014 or the body slam from Megaguirus or the dropkick from Megalon or the flying with from Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, but in my opinion, that comes very close. Though I've never, in the world of fiction, the world of movies, I never thought I'll see Godzilla do that officially, and then the ones involving Kong as well. That final tag team move up against the Scar King, just where Kong throws him at Godzilla, and then Godzilla tail whips him, and Kong grabs him back and chokes him out. Uh, and then Godzilla just when they have the rematch, it's Kong just beating Godzilla down to the ground, and I like how they're fighting like in the air in the hollow earth, and then Mothra's flying around. Godzilla in the way is like kind of swimming in midair. It's like it's, I like the way how the monsters fight in this movie. It's like exactly how I like when Godzilla monsters fight each other. It's like they fight a combination of like animalistically, but they also fight human like at the same time. It's some great entertaining stuff. And You got some beautiful shots in the movie, which I really like, and just this movie just has the same element and magic as those older Toho Godzilla movies, and that's another reason it makes it special to me. And I wasn't used to King Kong being like full on embraced in fiction, but like now it's just like I liked it better in Peter Jackson's King Kong and the OG 1983 Kong with 1976. But now it's like I'm used to Kong like being in this type of style now, just like it's very cool. And he like in my opinion, they managed to make him work in here. So whew, man, what a movie. But and then the way he Scar King is defeated, he gets frozen by Shimo, and then Kong does a slam, and then he shatters Scar King's body completely. Just like I like how every single one of these MonsterVerse films like end with like a Mortal Kombat type fatality. Like Godzilla 2014, he the classic kiss of death fatality. He kills the Muto, decapitates her that way, shoots the atomic breath down her throat, and then holding her head in his hand, and then Kong Skull Island, he rips out the Skullcrawler's intestines and organs, and then like just like ugh, gets me every time. And then King of the Monsters, he goes burning Godzilla mode. He fries Ghidorah to a crisp. He disintegrates his body, and then I think he stepped. If you look at a detail, kind of in more detail, actually, apparently Godzilla when he stomped on King Ghidorah in that one scene, he he actually his foot went through his chest. So King Ghidorah also kind of exploded with like gravity beam energy, and then Godzilla, burning nuclear pulse also went off and this like exploded Boston, and then he like, and then it looked like Godzilla was like eating his head for a second while Ghidorah was still alive, and then he does a reverse kiss of death, and then disintegrates his whole head, and then Godzilla versus Kong. Godzilla charges up Kong's axe and he chops off Mechagodzilla's tail in a way like two times, and then he cuts off both of his arms. He cuts off one of his legs. He hacks his chest, and then I was, it always gets me every time because it looks like he's gonna decapitate him with the axe, but no, he hacks him one really good time in the back, and then throws the axe to the side, and then jumps on him and proceeds to decapitate him with his bare fist instead. And man, you know, as King Kong 1900, shout out to him. Um, King Kong 19100 says like Kong is like, oh, he's like Captain America. He's like Batman. He relies on what he has, but Kong is apparently also Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat as well, because in this movie he does the same fatality to Mechagodzilla in some way that Sub-Zero does by ripping off the head, and then you kind of see the spinal cord a bit. And in this movie, Scar King is frozen, and then Kong leaps into the air off a building and slams his body on the ground, shattering it completely. It's just like Kong's not only Batman and Captain America of the MonsterVerse. No, he's also Sub-Zero as well. It's like whoa. And then the epic charge up scene, like it rivals Godzilla King of the Monsters for me. When Kong, they're running together like Batman and Robin, and then Scar King's riding on Shimo, and then the clash, Kong rides on Godzilla, and then they charge, and then the epic shots of them roaring right before they clash, and then the anti-gravity thing happens. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about that. I kind of did because I've talked about this movie for almost nearly an hour now, but I had a lot to say, but at the same time, not a whole lot to say other than just that I had a great time with this movie. Just the movie is far from a masterpiece. It's not a masterpiece, but like with these two films, I enjoy it as it is a masterpiece. So I'm not gonna compare it to Godzilla minus one because that's meant to be a totally completely different Godzilla movie from this one. But oh, this is one of my favorite Godzilla and King Kong movies of all time, and one of my favorite movies of all time, in my opinion at least. If you don't like it, that's fine. You can disagree with me all you want, but if you agree with me, cool. Now, is this my favorite movie, The Monsterverse? Yes, it is. It's officially beaten out Godzilla vs. Kong as my favorite movie, The Monsterverse. In my opinion, I like this one a bit better than Godzilla vs. Kong. Because in my opinion, it kind of rectifies some of the little tiny pet peeves I had about Godzilla vs. Kong. And this movie is obviously not perfect either, but in my opinion, I got more enjoyment out of this one than Godzilla vs. Kong. I did, and it replaces Godzilla vs Kong as my favorite movie in the MonsterVerse. Like every, it's like for me in some way, it just so happens to like every movie, almost like for at least in my perspective, in my POV, in my opinion, it's like every movie gets better than the last. It's like Godzilla 2014, just thought it was okay. Kong Skull Island was great. King of the Monsters, amazing. Godzilla vs Kong, even more amazing. But this, in my opinion, is the best. In my opinion, warning, in my opinion. We're all entitled to our own opinions. But like I said, if you disagree with me, that's fine. We agree to disagree. But if you agree with me, cool. So let me know down in the comment section below. What did you think of this movie? And do you agree with me? Well, let me know down your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you like the video, well, obviously don't be shy. Go ahead, like it. And if you dislike the video, I don't know what to say about that. Just you do you. And if you like the content I do on my channel, don't be shy. Be sure to subscribe. Um, it is totally up to you though. But I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good, wonderful day, and I love you all. And as good old Kong Spidey Zilla says, peace out.